Thank you so much, Paul. It's a shout out to Paul first, because I attended some of those first coin scrums over the years, and I've seen the community develop, and I've seen it change. And with the theme tonight of the convergence of the institutional markets and the way crypto markets are growing up, this event too has really grown up. So massive kudos to Paul and Paul's team for putting this event together and for assembling truly the industry's finest people in one night. Well done, Paul.
So Richard Crook, I used to run the emerging tech labs for Royal Bank of Scotland, so I've been inside banks before at UBS. Now back out the other side, and with my team we ported tokens and accounts out of Ethereum into Corda.
These headlines are really representative of what's happening here. On the left, we've got the crypto natives coming in and persuading regulators that we're doing this in a way that manages the risk that the mainstream established banks and the kind of financial establishment are worried about and don't have the appropriate tools to handle. On the right, we have a convergence of those. There's a bit of a feedback on here. Shall I? Where's the? Okay, cool. On the right, we've got massive names coming in and converging in from the left. I mean, some. That's okay. I'll go this side. How's that? Okay, that's much better. Coinbase got their EMI license, way back, and that was a real milestone. It was the first time. All right, I'm going to whip through this really quickly, just in the interest of time. So, Coinbase with the EMI, Coiny soon after them. We got our license at BCB Group as an authorized payments institution just a couple of months ago. The first of its kind that the FCA has issued for a crypto-dedicated company. On the right, we've got Fidelity in the room, who announced their digital custody strategy. ING and Morgan Stanley also with their concerted efforts in this space, and it's fantastic to see these names engaging and these markets converging.
Yeah, so there aren't any graphs in this pack, you'll be pleased to hear, but actually what you're looking at here broadly is a regulated space on the right hand side and a non-regulated space on the other. So the non-regulated space that's been out there working away in the crypto space, building that ecosystem, is now heading into the regulatory perimeter. As they come into the regulatory perimeter, they get regulated. You can see them taking licenses. Day after day, we see each of the crypto actors taking a license. As they take a license, they join the flock. And they now need to look and act like sheep. And that's the key message here, which is that your regulation isn't changing. People are coming in from the crypto space and they're joining the same regulatory space. So usually what we use here is the last line of Animal Farm. If the creatures looked from man to pig and pig to man and could not see the difference. Over time, they will not look different. Everybody's been sitting there looking at the big old bad banks and thinking that they're going to get wiped out. What do we say? That their crypto is going to be eating the banks. It's a key message. Actually, that's exactly what is happening. But when you go back, just as we see in Animal Farm, the creatures look from man to pig and pig to man. Don't mind which way around you look, think of it. They will be the same thing.
So we dramatic pause. So before we jump in further, we kind of cruised on the assumption that you know who we are. So we should probably very briefly introduce BCB Group and Lab 577. So BCB Group. Our origin story is on the OTC side, building a venue for institutional aggregation of cryptocurrency liquidity, and in that process we discovered how damn hard it was to move money. So we found a way to do that for ourselves by establishing ourselves as a payments institution, and then took that solution and made it generally applicable. So now we're able to provide payments accounts and business banking for crypto companies like exchanges, like Bitstamp in the room here, and Coinfloor in the room here as well, and market makers and anybody who needs to move money, which has been an insanely difficult bottleneck in this space. So we still do the OTC markets, but business banking is our main thrust. Labs 577 are a critical infrastructure partner for us, and I'll let Richard introduce that.
So we started out as banks back in 2015, 2014, 2013, looking at crypto and seeing what we could do with it. Very quickly, we decided we didn't like it. After that, we started looking at the technology underneath, and you'll notice what we did was separate blockchain from Bitcoin. And you remember that story back in 2015 where we separated blockchain so we could have a conversation about blockchain. Every time we walked in to the CEO's office, he wanted to talk about the Bitcoin price, and we wanted to talk about the blockchain technology so we could use it for different things. We separated artificially these two worlds. Over time, what people have realized is actually when you get under the covers of a cryptocurrency, it's a virtual currency, and when you actually look under it, tokenization and the idea of creating a digital asset is an important asset. Now, I've thrown these benefits up on the table because time and time again, people want to talk about the tech, but actually time and time again, what we're starting to realize is that when we deeply look at what's wrong with the capital markets business, the digital assets that are coming in from the crypto space are starting to solve some of those problems. So as we start to see people take a regulatory license and grow up, you'll see things like Arch Act coming in from the secondary trading, who are now starting to look at how do we create digital assets and trade them in a regulated environment. You'll see securitization, fractionalization, tokenization, usually mixed up, and people are trying to separate what those three things are. Securitization has had a quantum change in the cost of doing it. So now what you're seeing with tokenization and fractionalization is the ability to be able to do securitization quicker and faster, but more importantly, cheaper. And that dramatically changes the investment base you're going after and the assets you're actually securitizing. So most of the people in this room will have already seen this slide. We'll move on. For those who've not seen it or who are new to this space, worth taking some time to separate those three things: tokenization, securitization, fractionalization. Just me? Yep. Okay, so I get to ask this question over and over again. So why Corda? Why are we doing Corda? Why aren't you doing Ethereum? So from our perspective, this is about the only picture we've got in this pack, but what we wanted to do here was explain the journey that we're all on. The technologies are converging. Slowly but surely, it's a multi-decade play, but over on the left, the shared everything architectures that have been out there, the Ethereums, the Bitcoins, the Ripples, are slowly working out that actually shared everything is not going to do it. It's not going to cut it. On the other end, the bank started with blockchain, other industries are doing and following, and they created shared nothing architectures, things like Corda. You've got to remember that we come from a shared nothing architecture. We have a database, you have a database, never shall the two meet or talk. Somewhere in the middle here we're going to meet. If you look at ETH 2.0, it doesn't look dissimilar to Corda. If you look at the functionality going into Corda right now, it doesn't look dissimilar to ETH 2.0. These worlds are slowly converging. Something like Hyperledger as a framework that brings, an umbrella that brings all of these technologies together under one roof, is starting to evolve, and they've got good experience of doing that with Linux. So it gives you a good idea of what's happening if you take a step back and look at this. We couldn't have built Netflix on the internet of the 90s. By this time in the storyline, we'd not even seen Facebook, not even seen any of the new startups. We were still playing with Flickr, Yahoo, and other such pieces. Got a long way to go in this game. What I've done here, though, is on the left-hand side, show some of the requirements that the crypto space has demanded and delivered. Stores of value, smart contracts, public network, open access. On the right-hand side, what I put out on the table is the requirements that the regulated space needs. Privacy. We cannot have a situation where we can see all of the payments from all the other banks. I mean, I'd love to see all the payments from the other banks. They'd love to see mine, but that's not how the world works. Scalability, finality, all of these things on the right-hand side are the requirements, and that's why the technology is moving, and that's why we are not finished with this journey. From the currencies perspective in the center, you'll notice dollars in there, yens in there, euros in there, alongside Bitcoin. For us, they're just currencies, just one form of digital asset. There are loads more assets coming as we move through financial history. You're talking about lending, yep, that's the straight thing that comes after virtual currencies. So the first thing you've invented is a currency. After that is a loan book. After that, letter of credit, and onwards we go through the financial history.
Sure. That shared nothing and shared everything, this is another view of that. What you're looking at is a map of the actors in the capital markets. starting at the top with primary markets, so we have issuance. This is whether it's equity or debt, rolling down through the layers, through the depositories and the clearing, all the way down to the secondary markets at the bottom, spanning administration, brokerage, prime brokerage, all of the value-added bits of that ecosystem. And the key point here is that each node in this traditional markets map is proprietary tech. It is, and many of these nodes are still on the journey from paper to electronic media. One of the biggest management consultancy buzzwords over the last decade has been digital transformation, and that's still an excellent racket because there's still an awful lot. But the next phase is really about taking these siloed, node sharing points of truth and creating a single source of truth, a shared ledger that represents the entire capital stack from primary through the intermediaries to the secondary markets. This is about, I think it's best expressed if you flick the slide and talk to the decentralized alternative.
Okay, so up to this point, I've broadly given you kind of a macro picture. Most people will agree with me. One thing you don't want to do when you come on a talk like this is go on stage with a set of slides with your own opinion just before Alex Batman's going to take the stage as a panel. So this is going to be good. So this is from my perspective where we took a bet, we took a hedge. We came out of Royal Bank of Scotland and we said, look, tokenisation is coming, digital assets, can we do it inside? Ross McEwen turned around and said, nope, you're not going to do this. So the markets business wouldn't let us move, so we stepped out. We came over, we partnered with R3 over on the Corda side. We recognised that Corda from our side was about the only finance-grade, regulatory-ready technology we could use at the time. And we started to build digital asset shared ledger. So from our side, this is a blatant plug from our side, a product that we built that we could go to each of the capital markets institutions and give them a technology component, be them on the crypto side, coming in, looking for a regulated environment or getting a license, where they could talk to the FCA and use us as a partner to get their license. Because one of the things you'll find when you go through the FCA or any of the other regulators is you need a good, solid tech base, a good, solid story. And then on the other side, talking to the actual already established incumbents who are looking to try and get into this space. None of their tech works right now. We're very afraid of that, and what we've done is get a technology component in there that can actually connect into their core systems and into their interfaces. So from our perspective, it's a technology component. It's only doing a very small number of things. You see them on the right-hand side. These things are not dissimilar to what you're seeing in other technologies. Don't get me wrong in that respect. From our perspective, we built something that we know the banks can use, and those regulators coming in.
What do we do? With Dazzle, which is this digital asset share ledger based on Corda, we're able to represent pretty much anything on that ledger and have that agreement between counterparties, whether that's a currency, and we support business accounts in most major currencies, with direct integration to FPS, SEPA and major payment rails, but also cryptocurrency. So this is about moving money, it's about moving cryptocurrency and other digital assets, and on the custody piece, having a place to store them. Our custody piece is evolving, and we'd love to see trustologies place on the map there, and to be effectively an aggregator of excellent custody. I don't want to spend too long on the slide. This is not a story about BCB and Dazzle. This is a story of how we think we've found a sustainable route that is institutionally friendly and regulator friendly, that can bring that mythical institutional cash into this market in a very growth friendly way. So how does Dazzle help this situation? So in looking at the settlements layer alone, a typical turnaround time for sending cash between institutions, funds and merchants on the one end to market venues like exchanges and market makers on the other end has a payment process through multiple banks. What we can do with the power of the institutionally friendly Corda and specifically the Dazzle overlay, which takes, which offers that digital representation of cash and tokenized assets in the future, puts it in one place where settling between counterparties is certainly far more scalable and far more quick than the payment rails that exist. Quicker than FPS, quicker than SEPA Instant, quicker than the next generation of SWIFT. So when markets participants are trading with each other here, they can settle with each other instantly. This is not a white paper. This is live, and our clients are enjoying this already, and it's hopefully a game changer for moving money around the space or digital assets.
One thing to note on the bottom of this slide is the public Corda network. Again, as you'll see, the world's converged, the technologies converge. The open public Ethereum network, not some of the private networks that have been set up around the place, is a key requirement. Most of the banks do not want to enter a proprietary network. Just as AOL lost the fight to own the US consumer base in the internet, the idea of creating intranets where we can all use, trying to connect those to this big dirty internet, actually was so damned hard in the late 90s that we still have the word firewall in the English language, and that's used in common language. So what we're looking at here is everyone needs a public accessible network. You talk to someone like John Wheeler over at Santander, he keeps calling it the market of the many. If you look at what's emerging, and you'll see what Blink is built upon, from our perspective over in Lab 577 and with Dazzle, all we're doing is bringing legal entities onto that public Corda network. One of the unique things on that public Corda network is you can't be anonymous. So the whole G20 task force that's out there, the specific requirement they have is you can't be anonymous. And thus you have to come onto a network as an entity, natural or legal. That legal entity has to be identified. You have to do KYC, that's for the regulated entities to do. But from an AML and CFT, basic health and hygiene is that we know who we're talking to on the other side. That's why we invented LEIs. It's why the public networks you will see emerging will be free to enter, but you'll have to be known if you're going to be doing finance. So that's where, from our perspective, the public Corda network is a big win. The Corda Foundation looks after that. They identify the legal entity that's coming onto the network, prove that it exists, prove that the person coming on is actually that legal entity, and then lets the legal entity come on. And that's one of the key requirements we asked for when we built Corda. Don't think there's anything else in this pack. Just probably straightforward. Ben, where are you? BCB? Where is he? Is he still in the room or is he at the bar? No, he's not in the room. Ben, where's Mars? Is he out there? Yeah. There's Mars in the back. Right. So Mars is there. Anybody wants to talk to about BCB or Dazzle? Mars is there. Oliver and I have been in front of the stage. You've been a great audience. Looking forward to Alex's robust.